Denver voters will decide on up to 26 issues, including sales tax increases for Denver health and affordable housing, plus ranked choice voting, right to abortion, fur and slaughterhouse bans, and much more. It's possibly the longest ballot in Denver history, so you might want to get comfortable and plan to vote early. We'll look at the issues and candidates for the November 5th general election on this edition of Denver Decides. We'll start with the ballot issues. For the citywide and statewide issues, those with a letter or double letter in their ballot title were referred by state legislators. Those with only the number in their ballot title are citizen-initiated petitions, which were approved to go before voters after the Secretary of State's office verified signatures. It's important to remember a yes vote changes laws or circumstances, and a no vote means things stay the way they are. All Denver households with registered voters should have gotten a Colorado Blue Book and Denver's ballot issue notice, the Tabor Notice, in the mail. Additional city issues and voting information are listed in Denver's ballot information booklet, which is available online or by request and at voter service and polling centers. With information provided by these sources and the League of Women Voters, we'll show you information and pros and cons to consider. The information presented here is abbreviated to fit the format. If you haven't received your ballot in the mail yet, you can download a sample ballot at denvervotes.org to follow along. You'll find it by clicking November 2024 General Election. If you haven't gotten your Blue Book in the mail, you can see it online at leg.colorado.gov. Click Statewide Ballot Information Booklet at the very top. Going in ballot order, we start with the statewide issues. First among these is Amendment G, Modify Property Tax Exemption for Veterans with Disabilities. The current property tax exemption is available to veterans who have a service-connected disability rated as 100% permanent and total. This measure would amend the Colorado Constitution to expand eligibility for homeowners who are veterans assessed by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs as having individual unemployability status. Here are the pros and cons for Amendment G.
Those in favor of Amendment G say veterans who are unable to hold a steady job need property tax relief as much or more than other veterans who currently qualify for the homestead exemption and are still able to work. Including veterans with an unemployability rating in the homestead exemption helps ensure that those in need receive tax relief.
Those opposed to Amendment G say the disability unemployability rating is not necessarily permanent. Expanding this exemption will make property taxes more complicated, harder to administer fairly, and reliant on determinations by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs that are subject to change.
Next up is Amendment H, Judicial Discipline Procedures and Confidentiality. This measure amends the Constitution to change how disciplinary hearings for judges are handled. It would create an independent adjudicative board to preside over ethical misconduct hearings involving judges and allow for increased public access to judicial discipline proceedings and records. Here are the pros and cons of Amendment H.
Those in favor of Amendment H say Colorado judges should not have direct influence and oversight over the discipline of their colleagues. Amendment H is an important change that aims to enhance the transparency, integrity, and independence of the judicial discipline process. Historically, judicial discipline has largely been self-regulated, facing challenges in oversight and self-protection. This amendment serves to enhance public confidence and trust in the courts. Finally, this measure is a compromise recommended by nearly all members of the General Assembly and formally by the judicial branch.
Those opposed to Amendment H say, the current system works. Judges understand how to review cases, hold hearings, and make impartial and hard decisions. As a result, they have the experience to hear judicial discipline cases. The amendment transfers this authority to attorneys and citizens who cannot fully understand the judicial ethics and the unique challenges of being a judge. The judiciary's existing system of checks and balances, such as nomination and retention elections, ensures only the best become and remain judges.
Next on the ballot is Amendment I, Constitutional Bail Exemption for First-Degree Murder. This measure asks voters if there should be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution creating an exemption to the right to bail for cases of murder in the first degree when proof is evident or presumption is great. Currently, because of a recent Colorado Supreme Court ruling, all people charged with first-degree murder are eligible for a pretrial release, and therefore judges cannot deny them bail. This measure would restore the ability of judges to deny bail to people charged with first-degree murder when certain criteria are met. Here are the pros and cons for Amendment I.
Proponents of Amendment I say the measure restores a long-standing statewide legal precedent that was inadvertently eliminated by the repeal of the death penalty. Without the possibility of a death sentence, persons charged with first-degree murder are now eligible for bail. The legal standard of proof is evident or presumption is great is high enough to provide a safeguard against judges routinely denying bail for all persons charged with first-degree murder. People meeting this high standard are a danger to others if they are released.
Opponents of Amendment I say, in the United States, a person is considered innocent until proven guilty. If an individual is ultimately found not guilty at trial, a pretrial detention means they would have spent time in jail for a crime they did not commit. This raises significant concerns about justice and fairness, as the time lost and impacts on their life cannot be undone. Therefore, a person arrested for a criminal offense should have the opportunity to be free pending trial. Judges have the discretion to set restrictive bail conditions if they believe a person is especially violent or likely to commit another offense if they are released pending trial.
Up next, Amendment J, repealing the definition of marriage in the Constitution. It asks voters if there should be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution removing the ban on same-sex marriage. The measure amends the Colorado Constitution by repealing the definition of marriage as the union between one man and one woman. However, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled to allow same-sex marriages, invalidating this amendment from a Colorado ballot measure in 2006. This measure would formally remove the amendment from our state constitution. Here are the pros and cons for Amendment J.
Those in favor of Amendment J say the right of same-sex couples to marry is currently protected by state law and federal court rulings and by federal law. However, if the U.S. Supreme Court overturns its previous rulings in the future, leaving the current definition of marriage in Colorado's Constitution jeopardizes the ability of same-sex Coloradans to marry.
Those opposed to Amendment J say marriage should be a union between one man and one woman, and this definition of marriage should be preserved in the Colorado Constitution. If court rulings regarding same-sex marriage change in the future, the Colorado Constitution should reflect that marriage is a union between one man and one woman.
The next issue voters will decide is Amendment K, to modify the constitutional election deadline. The measure amends the Colorado Constitution to change election deadlines by making deadlines 1 week earlier for citizens to submit signatures for initiative and referendum petitions, and for judges to file declarations of intent to seek another term, and requiring that the content of ballot measures be published in local newspapers 30 days earlier than under current law. Here are the pros and cons for Amendment K.
Proponents of Amendment K say election deadlines are tight, especially to send ballots to military and overseas voters. Amendment K gives election officials more time to format, translate, and review ballots for accuracy before they are sent to voters. Time for this work is particularly important as ballots grow longer and more complex. It also ensures that newspapers publish the content of ballot measures sooner and before voters receive their ballots.
Opponents of Amendment K say, for some initiatives, Amendment K gives citizens less time to collect signatures and file petitions. Extra time to ensure ballots are accurate should not make it more difficult for citizens seeking to gather signatures for citizen initiative petitions. The content of ballot measures is already publicly available and is often covered by the media. More time for this mandatory publication is unnecessary.
Up next, Amendment 79, Constitutional Right to Abortion. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It asked voters if there should be a change to the Colorado Constitution, recognizing the right to abortion and prohibiting the state and local governments from denying, impeding, or discriminating against the exercise of that right. It would also repeal an existing Colorado constitutional provision banning the use of public funds for abortion services. For more specifics on this issue, refer to your Colorado Blue Book. Here are the pros and cons for Amendment 79.
Those in favor of Amendment 79 say placing the right to abortion in the Colorado Constitution protects abortion access in Colorado, ensuring abortion will be available in the state regardless of changing political climates. The measure safeguards an individual's ability to make their own healthcare decisions. Colorado's Constitution should not ban funding for healthcare services. Rather, policymakers should have the option to fund the care they believe state residents need. Abortion is an essential component of women's health care.
Those opposed to Amendment 79 say it is extremely broad and could prevent Colorado from passing statutes in the future to regulate or restrict abortion in any way. It limits the ability of lawmakers to pass policies preventing abortions later in pregnancies, establishing parental notification laws, or creating safeguards if they are interpreted to impede a woman's right to abortion. Abortion is already legal in Colorado, and a constitutional amendment is not necessary. Many Coloradans are opposed to abortion for personal, religious, and moral reasons. Taxpayers should not be forced to pay for the services to which they morally object. State law already allows exceptions for public funding of abortions in cases where the mother's life is in danger.
Amendment 80 is next on the ballot, Constitutional Right to School Choice. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It asked voters if there should be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution establishing the right to school choice for children in kindergarten through 12th grade. It would create the right for parents to direct the education of their children, and it would declare that school choice includes neighborhood, charter, and private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment options, and future innovations in education. Here are the pros and cons for Amendment 80.
Amendment 80 guarantees that school choice is a right of parents and children. By placing this right in the state constitution, Coloradans affirm their commitment to a parent's right to choose an appropriate school for their children, including all forms of school, both public and private. A constitutional measure ensures this right cannot be taken away by future legislatures.
Opponents to Amendment 80 say the Colorado Constitution already guarantees a free public education, and Colorado already has robust school choice laws that allow parents to choose from many public school options or choose to educate their children in private or home schools. Ultimately, this could result in redirecting funding from public schools to private and home schools.
The next issue on the ballot is Proposition JJ, retain additional sports betting tax revenue. It asks voters if, without raising taxes, the state be allowed to keep and spend all sports betting tax revenue above voter-approved limits to fund water conservation and protection projects instead of refunding revenue to casinos. Here are the pros and cons of Proposition JJ.
Those in favor of Proposition JJ say it allows the state to retain additional sports betting tax revenue already being collected under the current tax rate to support much-needed water projects, rather than making refunds to casinos and sports betting operators. Water is scarce in Colorado, and demand will continue to increase as the state's population grows.
Those opposed to Proposition JJ say it is effectively a tax increase because it eliminates sports betting tax refunds that the state would otherwise be required to pay. When the state collects more revenue than voters approved, it should provide refunds rather than expand a government program.
Up next, Proposition KK, firearms and ammunition excise tax. It asks, shall state taxes be increased by $39 million annually to fund mental health services, including for military veterans and at-risk youth, school safety and gun violence prevention, and support services for victims of domestic violence and other violent crimes. It would authorize a tax on gun dealers, gun manufacturers, and ammunition vendors at the rate of 6.5% of the net taxable sales from the retail sale of any gun, gun precursor part, or ammunition, with the state keeping and spending all the new tax revenue as a voter-approved revenue change. Here are the pros and cons of Proposition KK.
Those in favor of Proposition KK say gun violence causes substantial physical, mental, emotional, and financial harm. Taxing firearm and ammunition sellers is an appropriate way to fund programs that reduce the negative impacts of gun violence. Reliable access to victim and mental health services is critical for impacted communities. Victims of domestic violence, military veterans, and at-risk youth deserve dependable support to recover from their trauma. Current funding sources for these services are inconsistent and in some cases disappearing, while demand continues to rise. Without steady funding, these services may be reduced or eliminated.
Those opposed to Proposition KK say citizens have a state and federal constitutional right to own firearms. This measure places an additional burden on the ability of law-abiding Coloradans to exercise this right. Legal firearm sales should not be taxed to address problems caused by the harmful or illegal use of firearms. Firearms are used for many legitimate purposes, including self-defense and personal and community safety. Placing an additional tax on firearms and ammunition reduces the ability of people, particularly those with limited financial means, to access these tools. People seeking to buy firearms may choose to buy them in other states to avoid the new state tax, hurting Colorado businesses and potentially encouraging illegal purchases of firearms.
Proposition 127 is next on the ballot. It would prohibit bobcat, lynx, and mountain lion hunting. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It asked voters if there should be a change to the Colorado Revised Statutes to prohibit hunting mountain lions, lynx, and bobcats. It also prohibits the intentional discharging or releasing of any deadly weapon at a mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx, with certain exceptions. Any violation of these provisions is classified as a Class 1 misdemeanor and may result in the suspension of hunting privileges. Here are the pros and cons for Proposition 127.
Proponents of Proposition 127 say bobcat and mountain lion hunting causes the animals pain and trauma. The hunting of mountain lions may involve the use of dog chases, while the hunting of bobcats may involve the use of baits, lures, or live traps. Hunting and trapping these animals, often for trophies or the commercial fur trade, is an unnecessary practice. Bobcat and mountain lion populations can naturally regulate themselves without the need for hunting or trapping, and there is no consistent evidence that banning these activities would create new dangers to the public. Big cats provide valuable ecological contributions, and Colorado should protect them rather than allow them to be hunted.
The opponents of Proposition 127 say the measure restricts the ability of wildlife management experts at Colorado Parks and Wildlife to make science-based decisions to achieve the state's ecological objectives, which include preserving biodiversity, ensuring sustainable ecosystems, and protecting endangered species. The state currently manages a healthy population of bobcats and mountain lions, proving that its current management practices, which include regulated hunting, are working. Hunting mountain lions and bobcats provides an important source of income to the state wildlife management system and many local communities. Furthermore, agricultural producers and landowners will lose the ability to be reimbursed for any damage caused by a mountain lion.
Up next is Proposition 128, parole eligibility for crimes of violence. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It would amend the Colorado statutes to increase the amount of prison time a person convicted of certain crimes of violence must serve before becoming eligible for discretionary parole or earned time reductions. These crimes include second-degree murder, first-degree assault, Class 2 felony kidnapping, sexual assault, first-degree arson, first-degree burglary, or aggravated robbery. It would require an offender who is convicted of one of these crimes committed on or after January 1, 2025, to serve 85% of the sentence imposed before being eligible for parole. It would also make a person convicted of a third crime of violence ineligible for discretionary parole or earned time reductions. Here are the pros and cons for Proposition 128.
Those in favor of Proposition 128 say, Proposition 128 keeps people convicted of crimes of violence in prison for a longer period of time in an effort to increase public safety and ensure that justice is served. People who commit these dangerous crimes should be kept away from their victims and the community without opportunities for discretionary parole or earned time. Victims and their family members deserve the sense of security that prolonged periods of incarceration will provide.
Those opposed to Proposition 128 say it removes the opportunity for convicted people to achieve earned time, giving them less incentive to comply with prison rules or take advantage of rehabilitation opportunities offered in prison. The prison population will grow, which will increase costs and require additional staff, when many prisons are already short-staffed and have difficulty recruiting and retaining employees. Finally, there is no evidence that the measure will reduce crime rates.
Proposition 129 is the next issue to decide, establishing veterinary professional associates. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It would amend the Colorado statutes to create the state-regulated profession of veterinary professional associate in the field of veterinary care, and outline the minimum education and qualifications required to become a veterinary professional associate. For more details on this measure, see your Colorado Blue Book. Here are the pros and cons for Proposition 129.
Proponents of Proposition 129 say many Coloradans struggle to get veterinary care for their animals, especially in rural and agricultural communities. Allowing new veterinary providers to practice under state law may create more training and career opportunities for veterinary professionals, leading to expanded access. Veterinary professional associates could provide needed relief to overworked veterinarians, allowing them to delegate additional tasks and take better care of animals in Colorado.
Opponents of Proposition 129 say the measure's education and training requirements are vague and do not differentiate veterinary professional associates from existing veterinary care professionals. There are currently no academic programs for this profession in Colorado, so it is unclear when anyone would be eligible to work as a veterinary professional associate. Creating a new and untested profession could increase risk for animals.
Next up is Proposition 130, funding for law enforcement. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It would amend the Colorado statutes to direct the state to spend $350 million to help recruit, train, and retain local law enforcement officers, and require the state to provide a one-time $1 million death benefit to the family of each state and local law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty. More details can be found in your Colorado Blue Book. Here are the pros and cons for Proposition 130.
Those in favor of Proposition 130 say law enforcement is a critical and underfunded public need. This measure funds law enforcement without raising taxes. The state has a vested interest in ensuring that local governments can recruit and retain the best police officers possible to protect Coloradans and their property. Recent legislation has increased costs to local police departments without providing any new funding to cover these costs. Providing additional compensation for families of fallen officers upholds a social obligation to honor their sacrifice. Local law enforcement agency death benefits differ, with some providing fewer benefits than others. This measure guarantees that no matter where a fallen officer worked, their family will receive compensation for their loss.
Those opposed to Proposition 130 say no evidence exists to demonstrate that increased funding to law enforcement agencies has made communities safer. Proposition 130 directs the legislature to spend millions without considering local decisions about public safety needs or the state's broader public safety obligations. The measure only funds law enforcement instead of alternatives to traditional policing, such as social workers and behavioral health professionals, or programs such as access to affordable housing, jobs, healthcare, and education. Proposition 130 may not be implemented in a way local communities expect. The measure only explicitly requires the legislature to provide the death benefit, while the grant funding to local law enforcement agencies will depend on future legislative decisions. Local communities may anticipate levels of funding that the legislature cannot provide due to limited resources and differing priorities, creating uncertainty for local communities who will be unable to budget for this funding.
Proposition 131 is the next issue on the ballot, establishing all candidate primary and ranked choice voting general elections. It was placed on the ballot by a citizen initiative. It asked voters if there should be a new election process to create an all-candidate primary election for certain state and federal offices, where the top 4 candidates advance to the general election, and allow voters to rank those candidates in the general election, with votes counted over multiple rounds to determine who wins the election. More details can be found in your Colorado Blue Book. Here are the pros and cons for Proposition 131.
Proponents of Proposition 131 say the all-candidate primary gives all voters an equal opportunity to decide which candidates make the general election ballot. There are many districts in Colorado that are safe for one major political party, which means that whoever wins that primary election almost always wins the general election. Turnout is lower in primary elections, and the voters who do participate are often the most partisan. Opening primary races to more voters allows greater participation. It allows voters to rank the top 4 candidates in general elections, giving them more choice to express their voting preferences. General election voters are not necessarily limited to one candidate from each party, giving Coloradans more options.
Opponents of Proposition 131 say the new election system proposed by Proposition 131 is more complex and expensive. Voters will have to vote in 2 different systems for each election and may receive multiple ballots. Taxpayers will pay for extensive voter education. Even so, some voters will still be confused and will incorrectly fill out their ballots, which could change election winners. Political parties play an important role in our political system and should have their own primary elections to select candidates who reflect their beliefs and policy priorities. Unaffiliated voters can already participate in primary elections, so there is no need to open up primary elections in a way that further erodes the political party's ability to select their own candidates.
Those are the statewide issues you'll be voting on this fall. Again, you can get more information about these ballot issues. All Denver households with registered voters should have gotten a Colorado Blue Book. You can also see it online at leg.colorado.gov and click Statewide Ballot Information Booklet at the very top. In addition, you can get information on these issues from the League of Women Voters of Colorado. Go to lwvcolorado.org. You can also watch forums on 3 statewide issues: right to abortion, school choice, and open primaries and ranked choice voting, as well as some of the local ballot issues on Denver 8 TV and online at denverdecides.org. These forums will feature pro and con speakers. Now on to the city issues. For these issues, you can get more information from Denver's ballot issue notice and ballot information booklet. You can go to denvervotes.org to download a copy. The pros and cons are submitted by those in favor or opposed to any measure on the ballot. The Clerk and Recorder's Office does not verify or edit the information or the claims made in the comments. The information presented here is abbreviated to fit the format. You can also get information on these local issues from the League of Women Voters of Denver at lwvdenver.org. There are 12 ballot issues in Denver. We start with the measures referred by lawmakers. The first of the city issues is ballot issue 2Q, sales tax increase for Denver Health. It asks if the Denver sales and use tax should be increased by $70 million annually in order to maintain and expand Denver Health and Hospital Authority services. This would start January 1st, 2025, from a 34/100% sales and use tax rate, which is 3.4 cents on a $10 purchase. The services include emergency and trauma care, primary medical care, mental health care, drug and alcohol use recovery, and pediatric care. No more than 1% of the total annual revenues derived from the increase in sales and use tax shall be spent on city administrative costs related to the administration of funds for the above purposes. Here are some pros and cons for ballot issue 2Q. Many more comments can be found in the ballot issue notice.
Those in favor of ballot issue 2Q say Denver Health is our safety net hospital, and this funding is greatly needed. Denver Health has demonstrated that they are invested in providing services to anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. They are also highly rated in their financial health. Denver Health has demonstrated willingness to cut back on unnecessary expenses, ensuring that their budget prioritizes their ability to provide services to our growing city. More funding means that they can continue to provide high-quality services to our communities.
Those opposed to ballot issue 2Q say, the Hospital Authority is the safety net hospital for the metro region, providing services regardless of ability to pay. Medical facilities in the towns and cities surrounding Denver refer indigent and uninsured patients to Denver Health. These other communities need to share the cost of providing safety net services. City and County of Denver needs to step up to the plate and prioritize support for Denver Health in its budget instead of increasing the taxpayer burden. Nationwide, safety net hospitals get an average of 11% of their funding from local government. Denver contributes only 2.39% of Denver Health's budget.
Next up is ballot issue 2R, sales tax increase for affordable housing. It asks if the Denver sales and use tax should be increased by $100 million annually to expand and preserve affordable housing for low and middle income families and individuals. The tax would begin on January 1, 2025 and end on December 31, 2064, and would be accomplished through a 0.5% sales and use tax increase, which is 5 cents on a $10 purchase. The efforts include providing more affordable rental housing and reducing rent, and providing more affordable homes for purchase and programs to reduce the cost of buying a home. A portion of the annual revenues derived from this increase shall be spent on administrative costs for the above purposes. Here are some pros and cons for ballot issue 2R. Many more comments can be found in the ballot issue notice.
Proponents say, Denver's housing crisis is undeniable and growing. With rising costs and a significant shortage of affordable homes, we are at a critical juncture. Measure 2R offers a transformative solution. It will generate $100 million annually by increasing the city's sales tax by 0.5%. Measure 2R will provide meaningful funding to expand and preserve affordable housing. This crucial investment will support low and middle income families who are struggling to keep up with soaring housing costs. It will address the affordable housing shortfall. A recent study highlights a looming deficit of 44,000 affordable homes and rentals in Denver over the next decade for individuals earning less than 100% of the area median income. Measure 2R will tackle this gap head-on with targeted strategies to create and sustain affordable housing options.
Opponents say this initiative lacks a detailed plan. If it passes, a plan will be developed after the fact, leaving voters not knowing exactly what they are voting for. Transparency and public input are crucial in determining how funds are allocated. The proposed advisory board includes individuals and organizations that receive funding from the Housing Stability Office, HOST, creating potential conflicts of interest. Since 2006, Denver voters have passed 7 sales tax increases for various worthy causes, driving up city sales tax from 3.5% to 4.81%, not including state tax, RTD, and SCFD. The proposed 0.05% affordable housing tax would raise Denver's total sales tax from 8.81% to 9.31%.
Up next, referred question 2S, Human Rights and Community Partnerships as a cabinet agency. It asks if the charter of the City and County of Denver should be amended to add the Agency of Human Rights and Community Partnerships as a cabinet department and define the powers and duties of the department. Here are the pros and cons for referred question 2S.
Those in favor of referred question 2S say Denver's Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships was created in the 1940s to bridge the gap between community and Denver government that resulted from years of harmful racist practices like redlining. Voting yes ensures that this important community-facing agency remains a part of Denver's government into the future. It can help with the unhoused and immigrants getting better access to services.
Those opposed to referred question 2S say, this is an unnecessary expense with no benefit to citizens of Denver. There is no need for this in a modern democracy. This sounds like another way to fill pockets, not help people. What has happened in this city with the homeless and immigrants is shameful. It's labeled human rights, but that's not really how the funds are being utilized.
The next issue on the ballot is referred question 2T. It asks if the charter of the City and County of Denver be amended to remove the requirement that police officers and firefighters be United States citizens. Here are the pros and cons for referred question 2T.
Those in favor of referred question 2T say, this measure ensures that any resident who is legally authorized to work and meets all existing qualifications can apply for the Denver Police and Fire Departments. Many non-citizens already serve Denver in other city jobs, including roles in the Denver Sheriff's Department. They can also serve in the U.S. military.
Those opposed to referred question 2T say this is unclear. What benefits would they be offered? Will citizenship be a part of the path? Are we using our resources to train folks that have no intention of staying? They say, how can a non-citizen enforce laws of this country when they are citizens of another?
Up next is referred question 2U, collective bargaining for city employees. It asks if the charter of the City and County of Denver be amended to establish collective bargaining as a method for setting compensation and other terms and conditions of employment for non-supervisory city employees who are included in a bargaining unit. Except for employees of the Denver County Court and employees of Denver Water, employees would be granted the right to strike in the event of an impasse in bargaining negotiations only if mediation does not resolve the impasse, and the strike will not substantially threaten public health, welfare, or safety. Here are the pros and cons for referred question 2U.
Proponents of referred question 2U say collective bargaining is in the public interest. Public workers like trash collectors, street cleaners, librarians, social workers, landscapers, environmental investigators, emergency dispatchers, and more dedicate their lives to the safety and well-being of our city. When they can speak together to address workplace issues, they're better able to advocate for the public they serve and to advance the health, safety, equity, and prosperity of our city. Collective bargaining benefits all parties. Workers are able to advocate as one body instead of in isolation. Management is able to gain a clearer understanding of what its workforce needs to flourish, and the public benefits from greater stability and longevity of the workforce that serves the city and the ability to compete with private employers to attract talented workers.
Those opposed to referred question 2U say Denver employees don't need unions. 2U will only add to the big government that we've been trying to prevent. City employees currently have a voice regarding their choice of employment. They can choose to work somewhere else. They work for the taxpayers, and letting our city workers join unions will do nothing to improve our already great city. City employees are very well compensated, including a generous pay and benefits package. We do not need the threat of a possible shutdown of city departments added to the stress Denver taxpayers already have in dealing with city departments.
Next, we have referred question 2V, firefighters binding arbitration. It asks if the charter of the City and County of Denver be amended to allow for binding arbitration in lieu of an advisory fact-finding process when impasse occurs between the city and the firefighters during collective bargaining. Here are the pros and cons for referred question 2V.
Those in favor of referred question 2V say, introducing binding arbitration for Denver firefighters and the City of Denver is a crucial step towards a fair, equitable, and streamlined resolution of collective bargaining issues. This process would mirror what's already in place for Denver police and sheriff's deputies.
Those opposed to referred question 2V say city employees should be barred from collective bargaining.
Now on to referred question 2W, elected official salaries. It asks if the charter of the City and County of Denver be amended to remove the requirement that City Council vote on elected official salaries every 4 years prior to the general election, and to remove discretion in setting the salaries, and instead require that the salaries be stated in ordinance. Any future adjustments would continue to be the lesser of either the Consumer Price Index increase for the Denver metro area or the cumulative percentage change for career service Denver employees. Here are the pros and cons for referred question 2W.
Those in favor of referred question 2W say, currently, elected official salaries are set by the Denver Charter based on a formula and then approved by a vote of City Council every 4 years. This is a conflict of interest and undermines residents' faith in their government. Voting yes effectively approves future elected official salaries and resolves this conflict.
Those opposed to referred question 2W say, salaries should always be reevaluated and voted on.
Next, we have two ordinances brought by citizens. First, Initiated Ordinance 308, Fur Ban. It asks if the voters of the City and County of Denver should adopt an ordinance concerning a prohibition of fur products, and beginning July 1, 2025, prohibit the manufacture, distribution, display, sale, or trade of certain animal fur products in the city, providing limited exemptions to the prohibition. Additional information and more pros and cons for the fur ban can be found in Denver's ballot information booklet. Here are the pros and cons for Initiated Ordinance 308.
Those in favor of Initiated Ordinance 308 say, the measure is an important step towards ending the cruel, unnecessary, and outdated practice of killing animals solely to wear their fur. On fur factory farms, wild animals like foxes, mink, and rabbits spend their entire lives in tiny wire cages barely larger than their bodies. Fur trapping is no better. Wolves, foxes, coyotes, and raccoons struggle in painful traps for days before being bludgeoned, starving, or freezing to death. In terms of animal welfare, Denver is lagging behind. 25 countries around the world have already passed fur bans. Fur's environmental impact is equally alarming. Intensive fur farms generate significant water and air pollution and have an incredibly high environmental footprint due to the significant demands for land, water, feed, and energy needed to sustain thousands of captive animals. Fortunately, we can now produce better, warmer clothing with materials that are more sustainable and cruelty-free.
Those opposed to Initiated Ordinance 308 say the Denver fur ban would prohibit the manufacture, distribution, display, and sale or trade of any animal fur products within the city and county of Denver. While the proponents paint it as an animal rights measure, its implications extend far beyond and into the very heart of our community, our traditions, and our economy. The Denver fur ban is not just about fur coats or luxurious fashion items. This measure will harm a wide array of local businesses and industries that have deep roots in our community. The ban would impact the Denver March Powwow and Indian Market and Southwest Arts Fest, where Native Americans come to celebrate their culture and traditions. The proposal poses a direct threat to the cultural practices and economic opportunities of Indigenous and Native American communities. It would also cast a long shadow on the future of the National Western Stock Show, prohibiting many vendors from attending the show and selling their goods. Their products are not mere commodities, they are cultural artifacts, symbols of our Western heritage.
Next, Initiated Ordinance 309, Slaughterhouse Ban. It asks if Denver voters should adopt an ordinance prohibiting slaughterhouses and beginning January 1, 2026, prohibiting the construction, maintenance, or use of slaughterhouses within the city. It would require the city to prioritize residents whose employment is affected by the ordinance in workforce training or employment assistance programs. Additional information and more pros and cons for the slaughterhouse ban can be found in Denver's ballot information booklet. Here are the pros and cons for Initiated Ordinance 309.
Those in favor of Initiated Ordinance 309 say it's well past time to phase out society's worst forms of animal cruelty. Industrial slaughterhouses are cruel to animals, dangerous for workers, and catastrophic to our environment. This measure will phase out the worst industrial slaughterhouses within city limits, starting a movement towards a more just and sustainable food system. Many Denverites are surprised to learn that the largest industrial lamb slaughterhouse in the United States is here in town, killing 500,000 six-month-old lambs every year. The latest research on animal behavior has shown that lambs are highly intelligent and emotionally sophisticated individuals, just like our dogs and cats at home.
Those opposed to Initiated Ordinance 309 say, this proposition unfairly targets a single employee-owned business and would cost 160 workers their jobs. Banning one Denver business won't improve animal welfare or the environment, but it will have devastating consequences for the economy and people who work at Denver's only slaughterhouse. This is just the wrong approach. This proposition's language is misleading. It refers to slaughterhouses, but there's only one in Denver, a 70-year-old business owned by its workers. 80% of the workers are people of color, and working at the slaughterhouse provides good wages and benefits that support their families. The language makes it sound like after the workers lose their jobs, they will somehow be compensated. But the measure provides no payments at all, and there's no guarantee of future employment.
Next, we have ballot issue 4A, Denver Public Schools bond issue. It asks if without imposing any new tax, should Denver Public Schools debt be increased by $975 million, with the repayment costs of $1,900 million to finance capital improvements of the district. Improvements would include those for safety and security, secure entrances and weapons detection, and more, plus building renovations, cooling systems, expanding capacity, and more. Here are some pros and cons for ballot issue 4A, Many more comments can be found in the ballot issue notice.
Those in favor of ballot issue 4A say it will make a $975 million investment in our schools, all without raising your taxes. This bond issue will fund vital projects for Denver's kids, such as maintaining and renovating existing school buildings by replacing leaking roofs, making critical structural repairs, and addressing outdated electrical and fire systems. Providing cooling systems for high-temperature classrooms and schools that lack air conditioning, building and improving spaces for workforce and career readiness courses and vocational, technical, and trade programs, expanding and improving mental, behavioral, and physical health clinics for students at DPS schools. Learning environments are critical to student achievement, and this measure will improve our classroom for teachers and students. It will reduce class sizes and school overcrowding in far northeast Denver, where the student population is growing rapidly.
Those opposed to ballot issue 4A say, while we all want to support our public schools, this gigantic $975 million bond issue is too big and prevents suffering taxpayers from getting a tax rate decrease they need. While not increasing tax rates, this initiative extends taxes approved in 6 different elections that otherwise would have expired. The property taxpayers could have used a decrease in taxes after the tremendous hike due to property value increases. The $975 million bond issue will actually cost $1.9 billion after interest is paid. Many of the items included in this bond should have been paid out of the regular budget. The Denver schools got the benefit of a windfall property tax increase due to increases in property values, yet instead of using that windfall for maintenance and upgrades, the schools are asking for more money. Denver residents have suffered too high an increase in cost of living already.
Next, some Denver voters will be voting on ballot issue 6A, Denver Downtown Development Authority debt increase. It asks if without increasing taxes, shall the City and County of Denver, Colorado debt be increased $570 million with a total repayment cost of not more than $847 million, maximum total principal and interest, for use by and on behalf of Denver Downtown Development Authority. Here are the pros and cons for ballot issue 6A.
Those in favor of ballot issue 6A say, the Downtown Denver Development Authority, the DDDA, has helped fund the transformative redevelopment of Union Station and Market Station. A yes vote will preserve the DDDA and allow it to make similar investments in nearby downtown neighborhoods. These investments will help revitalize and transform downtown by converting vacant office spaces, adding parks and public spaces for people to gather, and other amenities that will benefit all the people who live, work, and visit downtown.
No comments were filed by the constitutional deadline.
And finally, we have ballot issue 7A, RTD funding. If it passes, RTD would be allowed to keep and spend money from its current sales tax rate and other revenue into the future, instead of having to cut its sales tax rate, turn down federal grants, or issue rebates starting in 2025. RTD's elected board referred 7A to the ballot. This measure will neither let RTD raise its sales tax rate nor impose a new tax. Here are some pros and cons for ballot issue 7A. Many more comments can be found in the ballot issue notice.
Those in favor of ballot issue 7A say, passage of ballot measure 7A will allow RTD to keep and expand mass transit options across the metro area, all without raising taxes. It will help to maintain current levels of bus and rail services, repair and improve rail lines, buses, bus stops, stations, and other infrastructure. Since 1995, voters have waived RTD's Tabor cap multiple times, allowing RTD to keep the money it raises. The waiver expires partially again this year. Voting yes allows RTD to keep the money it already raises. RTD will still need to follow Tabor requirements, such as seeking voter approval for new or increased taxes or bonding authority. People with disabilities, commuters, students, seniors, and many others that may have no other means of getting to where they need to go depend on RTD's buses and trains. Reliable public transit is crucial for getting people to work, school, and essential services.
Those opposed to ballot issue 7A say even the strongest supporter of mass transit must rethink this tax. It's not a good idea, nor is it the right time. Ridership is way down. It dropped to only 65.2 million boardings in 2023 when it had been 103.2 million boardings in 2019. That's a huge drop. RTD wants this for ongoing operations, but that level of spending no longer matches the ridership. Management has not kept riders safe. Many people avoid using buses and light rail due to dirty needles, assaults, open drug use, filth, and crime.
Those are the issues you'll be voting on this fall. Again, please refer to your state and city ballot guides for more information. And you can also get information on these issues from the League of Women Voters of Denver and of Colorado. Go to lwvdenver.org and lwvcolorado.org. You can watch forums with pro and con speakers on several of these issues on Denver 8 TV and online at denverdecides.org. Also on this November's ballot are candidates for federal and state offices. In ballot order, here are the candidates.
The candidates for President of the United States are
The majority of voters in Denver are in Congressional District 1. For United States Representative District 1, here are the candidates.
Recently, a small portion of Denver in the southeast part of town is now in Congressional District 6. For United States Representative District 6, voters will choose between these candidates.
For Regent of the University of Colorado at large, the candidates are
For State Senator District 26, in the southeast and southwest parts of town, voters will choose between these candidates.
The candidates for State Senator District 31 in the east central part of town are
The candidates for State Senator District 33 in the northeast part of town are
Voters will also pick their state representative in the fall election. In District 1 in the southwest part of town, the choices are
In District 2 in south central Denver, the candidates are
Voters in District 3 in far southeast Denver will pick between
Voters in District 4 in far west and north Denver will pick between
Voters in District 5 in West and North Denver will have these choices.
The candidates in District 6 in Central and East Denver are
Voters in District 7 in far northeast Denver will choose between
Voters in the north central and northeast part of town will make the choice for State Representative District 8 between
Voters in District 9 in southeast Denver will choose between
For district attorney in the 2nd Judicial District, which is most of Denver, there is one candidate running unopposed.
Voters in Regional Transportation District A may choose between 3 candidates.
Voters in Regional Transportation District D may choose between 2 candidates.
And voters in Regional Transportation District E may choose between these candidates.
Finally, voters will also be asked whether or not to retain judges from several judicial districts and jurisdictions, which will return them to the bench. The following is a list of the judges on the ballot. You can get a full review of all commission recommendations and each individual's complete judicial review at the website judicialperformance.colorado.gov. All these judges have been rated and meet performance standards. Denver has been a pioneer in conducting safe, secure mail-in elections and has successfully conducted mail-in elections for years. Denver's ballot information booklet has all the information you need to make sure your vote counts. You can also visit denvervotes.org. If you haven't registered or if you need to verify or change your information, go to govotecolorado.gov. You can return your ballot at a 24-hour drop box, a drive-through, or by mail. Or you can vote in person at a voter service and polling center. The locations and hours are listed in your Denver's ballot information booklet. You can also track your ballot with Ballot Tracks. Sign up at denvervotes.org. If you need a new ballot, visit denvervotes.org to request the new curbside pickup service. You can also call 311 or 720-913-VOTE. That's 720-913-8683. Remember, in order for your vote to count, be sure your ballot arrives by 7 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th. Thanks for watching, and be sure to exercise your right as an American and vote.